Hey, good morning or good afternoon or good evening or really, I hope you're all having a lovely day today. That's much easier. We're gonna, oh, hey, let's go ahead and get started. Everything is going to be super chill and everything is going to be moderately laid back today. I know I say this every time, but nothing bad's going to happen. Oh, except I'm getting a little sparkle behind me. I think I need to readjust my lights when I get a moment. Aside from everything being very faintly sparkly, everything's going to be chill. Remember that we're working from the responsive web design certification, and we're going to come on down and take a look at what we've done so far. We've done all our HTML. Oh gosh, good afternoon from the Philippines. Hopefully it's a good time for you. And here we're coming into applied visual design. And we did all of this last week. Look at this. Look at how intimidating all of this is. But what we're going to be looking at today is lots and lots of color stuff. That being a very technical term, isn't it? Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Yeah? We feel okay with this? Yeah. Everything is going to be reasonably mellow. Yeah. What do we need? More light to make me less sparkly. You know what? We'll just go ahead and cope with me being a bit sparkly. It's not the worst thing that could happen, is it? So we're going to be learning about complementary colors. And complementary colors. So, well, I did this when I was 3 or I did this when I was 4. I know about complementary colors. But weirdly, or perhaps not weirdly, complementary colors on computers or even today are a little bit different of a color wheel. Back in the day, yeah, we talked about sort of the primary colors being, oh gosh, what were they? Red and yellow and blue. And you've noticed that when we were building our own colors, we've been working from red and green and blue. So we're kind of having to start over from a very, very elementary level and relearn a lot of things. So here it's saying color theory and its impact on design is a deep topic. And we're only going to cover the basics. Cool? In large part because this course only covers the basics and also because I'm still gently mystified by it all. But here it's saying, you know what? Color's important. And I think we agree. Do you know what? This seems like a strange question to ask adults, but what's y'all's favorite color? I'm a very dedicated blue fan myself, but yeah, being able to use the colors you're most passionate about or that make the most sense for your users on a website can draw attention to content. They can evoke emotions. They can create visual harmony. Platypuses is FF00FF, which is going to be magenta, isn't it? Because we've learned the first 2 Fs are going to turn the red all the way up, and the second 2 are going to turn the blue all the way up. I think that's going to be purple. And Egg Roll is saying, like, look, I'm an adult. I don't really have a favorite color, and I respect this. So we got some blues, some blue green. Monica's just like, you know what? I'd like all the colors. And there's no rules. Yeah. So some examples of complementary colors with their hex codes are red and cyan. Let's take a look at what that means. Well, yeah. And this says blue, but we're not going to pay attention. So they say red and cyan are complementary colors. So that means when they're next to each other, they should look really, whoa, they should look a little bit jarring, but they should look very strong next to each other, is my understanding. Let's check out what they mean with green and magenta are complementary colors. And perhaps I'm very old. You know what? I like green and cyan next to each other. This is why I can't be trusted. So green and magenta, which is one of our favorite colors, aren't they? Oh, wow. That is a lot. That feels like a gum wrapper from the 90s, doesn't it? That is reasonably intense. But I think this challenge wants me to make the blue box blue. I haven't even read the instructions. And probably wants me to make the yellow box yellow, right? And if you want to dig into more of, oh, what's a complementary color? What do these mean? I'm going to send you to find a color wheel and just look for what's across from the color you've picked. Yeah, there's a lot of really valuable information here, and I'm going to be terrible and make you. I'm not going to make you, but encourage you to read this on your own. Ooh, this is important. Using color can be a way to add visual interest, but it shouldn't be the only way you convey important information. If somebody's not able to see the color, if somebody's using assistive technology, highlighting something in yellow, it doesn't do them a bunch of good, does it? You may want to use something like an underline, which is semantic, or something like bolding. Yeah. Ooh, I'm just having a fight with my mic. Change the blue to blue, change the yellow to yellow. We went ahead and did that. And we've been asked to please note how the colors look different to compare, especially striking when compared against the white background. You want to run all tests? Let's run all tests. Yeah, everything continues to be super, super mellow this morning. I mean, for a Monday, it better be, right? So we're going to learn about tertiary colors. So we just learned that complementary colors are the ones that are across from each other or sort of against each other versus each other on a color wheel. And tertiary colors are the RGB additive color model. So we talked a little bit when we were little kids, we got taught that the primary colors are red and blue and yellow. And here we're saying, well, you know what? Here, for the sake of computers and for the sake of the models we're thinking about, colors in, red and green and blue are going to be the colors we mix together. Mixing two primary colors creates a secondary color. For example, green and blue makes magenta. Or wait, no. Cyan is green and blue. Magenta is red and blue. Yellow is red and green, which still, my inner 3-year-old recoils against this. Tertiary colors are the result of combining a primary color with one of its secondary color neighbors within the RGB color model. So red primarily and yellow secondarily makes orange tertiary. Tertiarily? So red is a primary color. It's one of these first 3 that we're using. Yellow is a secondary color. We add 2 things to get yellow. And orange is tertiary. We add 3 things to make orange. So let's go ahead, and this still feels weird, right? Let's go ahead and see what it means. So here are the 3 colors created using the split complement scheme. Here for the orange, we're saying give me all of the red. Well, you know what? Give me some green. And that's going to give us orange. So enough red to make red, enough green where it would make yellow should give us orange, we think. And I'm just going to copy and paste this over and see what it feels like. Isn't that weird? Cyan, we've already learned up here in the text that cyan is green and blue. So here we've got no red at all. Please don't give me any red. And if you recall correctly, when we're doing hex codes, the codes start from 0, so give me none of that color, to F, which is give me max that color. And here we've said, please don't give me any red, but give me maximum green, because the first 2 spaces, the first 2 digits are red, the second 2 are green, and the third 2 are blue. So here we're saying don't give me any red, but give me maximum green and then maximum blue. Let's copy and paste that over and see what it feels like. And I know this color stuff feels really wobbly, if that's not a weird technical term. But the more you play with these, the more they're going to make sense, and they're going to feel intuitive. Oh, I'm so sorry. And raspberry is a very evocative color, isn't it? For raspberry, they've said, please give me maximum red, FF for red, and please don't give me any blue at all. But go ahead and give me the 7F. Or please don't give me maximum red. Please don't give me any green. And please go ahead and give me a mixed amount of blue. Let's see what this feels like. And I know these lessons don't feel especially exciting because we're just sort of copying and pasting it over. Oh, good morning from the seashells. I hope it's a lovely morning out here. It's terribly rainy. I bet I'd switch weather with you. So let's come on down and let's run these tests and let's play some more with color just because this feels weird, right? I hate to be consistently telling you all, oh, the more you do this, the more it'll make sense. But I fear that's really what we're going to be doing is the more. Ooh, ooh. I'm sorry, you're not boring me. I'm just very old. The more you do this, the more it will make sense. So we're going to adjust the color of different elements to complementary colors. We've learned about complementary colors 2 lessons ago, but now what we're going to do is we're going to change different components because we think they're going to look cool together. Yeah, strong visual contrast is great, but too much of it can be really jarring. If I put magenta on, remember when we saw that sort of magenta and cyan next to each other, where I was like, ooh, that's a very exciting contrast, but it's a lot, isn't it? You want to make sure that we're not giving people too much, eh? So we're going to use teal as the dominant color and orange. Woof, teal and orange. Whoa, teal and orange. I've got my doubts. So hang on, I'm going to copy using Control or Command C. Yep, Singrid's makes a really good point. So 7F is 50%. So instead of FF, which is maximum red or maximum green or maximum blue, 7F is just like, well, give me 50% of this. And that's a really good point that I could have made much more effectively. Sigrid? Sorry, Sigrid. I mispronounced your name as well. I'm very rude. This is such a good point, and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. So we're going to change the background color of the header and footer from black to teal. We can do this. So we're going to find our header, which was done as a CSS selector. And instead of the background color being black, we're going to change. Oh, okay. In my head, when they said teal, I thought a very aggressive, more of a cyan sort of thing. This is very laid back, isn't it? Let's find where the footer's hiding. We've got her. And let's change the background color again to this teal we've been provided. Let's come on down. Yeah. Actually, you know what? With just white and black, this looks quite good. But we've also said we want to use this orange, which is a lot of red, a moderate amount, not quite half, not quite half, green, and then some blue, not a ton of blue. And we're going to come down and say, change the H2 color. Oh, change the H2 color to teal as well. This is why reading instructions is so valuable. That's teal as well. Oh gosh, that's quite a bit of teal. Now we're going to come and orange. What do we want to be orange? The background color of the button should be orange. That seems weird, but okay. I'm going to ask all of you, because you likely have much better taste than I do. What do we think about this teal and orange? What are our opinions about this? I mean, I think it'll pass. I think we can run our test. But I confess that in my heart, I'm not feeling the orange and teal next to each other. Let's run our tests. Oh, so this is a really good question. Why can't we use words instead of hex codes? So you can use words instead of hex codes here. If I come up to the header, there's nothing stopping you in your website from saying, I want this to be green. I want this to be teal. Does teal work? Oh, teal works. But here we're using hex codes to get more used to them being monsters. They are monsters, you're right, but they're monsters we've got to learn to live with. One thing about using hex codes instead of the keywords for the colors is there's only so many keyworded colors. Whereas there's, oh gosh, what was it? Something something million hex codes. You love how terribly precise I am. And it's that point in the stream again. So Free Code Camp and this bootcamp are completely separate. Free Code Camp is a nonprofit. If you've got the cash, don't spend money you don't have. But if you've got the cash too, and you're finding these useful, you may want to donate to them. I mean, never pay us money. Just oh no, heck, ask me later. So we're going to adjust the hue of the color. Ooh. So colors have several characteristics, including hue, saturation, and lightness. CSS3 introduced a HSL property, which gave us, are you ready? Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? Another way to pick colors. And I know you're saying, Jess, please stop giving me more ways to make colors, because we've already done. You can use the color name, you can use the hex codes, you can use RGB, you can use RGBA, and now we're going to use HSL. And Platypus is making a good point. You could use HSLA as well to make this more or less see-through. So we're going to come on down and we're going to see what this is about. I confess that I never use this. I mean, Linda, I feel you. The orange and teal, they were making a point. I'm sure the visual design is very good, but orange and teal, really now. So let's look at what hue, what saturation, and what lightness mean before we play with it a bit. I confess that I've never used this in the real world. So maybe, oh gosh, for those of you who are doing a lot more CSS than I am, do you often see this in the wild? Do you see folks using HSL a lot? I confess, maybe just the circles I run in, perhaps is a bit less popular. So hue is what we think of when we think of color. If you picture the spectrum of color starting with red, going through green and blue, it's where the color fits along that spectrum. In HSL, you use a color wheel concept instead of a spectrum, where the angle of color on the circle is given as a value between 0 and 360. And you say, Jess, what the hell? And I'm like, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Oh, you're saying it's mostly used in things like Photoshop. I'm glad. It was one of those things where I've seen this come up in lessons. I'm like, oh gosh, this must be something fancy designers use. And perhaps, as Platypus suggests, this may be something that fancy designers are using. Linda points out, if a client wants what they want, you make what they want, even if it is putting teal and blue next to each other. Eggroll, so what's a suitable lightness for normal web pages? And that's a really good question. So I'd really say that the question isn't about how light a color you're using is, but it's about the contrast between the text in the background and other elements in the background and other elements in each other. So we're going to be talking a lot more about this in, oh gosh, next week when we start accessibility, which I'm excited for. And that's really going to be about, a lot of that we're going to look at will be about contrast. So it sounds very heartless to say, I don't care, but I'm not bothered by how light or how dark of a color you use, so long as you've got really good contrast between that and the other colors around it. So hue is where on that color spectrum a color sits. Saturation is the amount of gray in a color. A fully saturated color has no gray, and a minimally saturated color is completely gray. Cool. All right. Lightness is the amount of white or black in a color. 0 is black. 100% is white. 50% normal color. Weird, huh? Let's see what this looks like. Where's my red? Oh, you're not going to show me red? Beastly. You know what? I'm going to cheat because this says that it wants it to be. Let's just check. Okay, so we've got 0. So we're starting at red. Remember that when we talk about the color spectrum. It starts at red and ends with blue. So here we say, hey, start at red, make it 100% saturated. So please don't give me any gray in it, and use 50%. Yeah. And here the 50% is normal color. 0% would make it black. Let's check. Is that true? It would. 100% would make it white. And you say, well, Jess, what's the point of this? I say, what if we wanted to make it pink? You'd use 90% to make it pink. Yeah. So really, you've got this flexibility, and it's another model for thinking about color. And I think that's pretty exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to come on down and we're going to try, and I imagine it wants us to, make the green green, make the cyan cyan, and make the blue blue. We're going to go ahead and start with green. So here it's saying it wants the HSL to be 120. And that makes sense, I guess, conceptually. It would make a lot more sense if we were taking a look at you know what? Let's take a look at a color wheel in just a second. Let's finish this one up and let's take a look at a color wheel and see what that feels like. So we've got 120. So we've gone from 0, which is red. And if we kept going all the way around the circle 360, we'd get to blue. We're going a little bit in there. We're going to where green lives. Green's neighborhood. So we've got that. And we say, you know what? A lot of these are going to look really familiar because we don't want any gray in this. And we don't want any extra black or white in here. And here, when we do this and cyan and blue, really the only big differences I think we're going to see is where these fall on the color spectrum. We're not making it more or less gray using saturation, and we're not making it lighter or darker using the lightness value. All right, let's see what this means. So cyan sits at, oh gosh, don't forget we HSL. Cyan sits at 180 on that color wheel, doesn't it? We know we don't want to make it gray at all, so we can just go ahead and dash out 100%. And we don't want to lighten it up or darken it up, so we can put that at 50%. Everything is mostly chill. And the last one we're going to do is blue. Do HSL again. And don't worry if this seems weird. You don't have to. Again, you don't have to use this. You can use the color keywords if you want. You can use hex codes if you want, even though it sounds like not all of us love hex codes. But the whole point behind there being a bunch of different ways to do color is you can use the way you like best. So blue is 240. It's coming all the way around. And you say, well, Jess, you said it's a 360 wheel. Why is it 240 for blue? Shouldn't blue be right up against red? I say, yeah, but the space between 240 and 360, I bet that's going to be those blue-red mixes, those really exciting purples. Do 100%. We're going to do 50% again. Oh, Tunnel Rat makes such a good point. You know, hex codes are so much, but there's all these color picker websites out there that really, really want to make your life easier. Yeah. And people use them all the time. Serious, super deadly professionals. I mean, I hope no CSS professionals are deadly, but very impossibly serious professionals still use these color picker websites, I promise. Let's run the tests. So one thing, here's adjusting the tone of a color, but I said, go ahead and search for, Google very much. Oh, look, here's one of these color pickers somebody's just picked for us. And here, this is very, very Web 90s feeling. So we've got sort of, here we go. This is laying out our 360, but on a line for us. So earlier we said blue was 240. I think if I click here, we're going to hit sort of 240-ish, right? Yeah, 247, overshadow low. And if we keep going, we're going to get these purpley ones that start taking us back into red territory, but like this slightly purpley red. Yeah. All weird, isn't it? Let's come on back to adjusting the tone of a color. So HSL option in CSS makes it easy to adjust the tone. Mixing white with a pure hue creates a tint of that color. Oh, how nice. Alternatively, a tone is produced by adding gray. So you can both tint and shade. Think about this as having a little painter's palette. You say, oh, it's a bit cheery. I want to add just a touch of gray, or I want to add a bunch of gray to sort of mellow this out. Or, you know what, I'd like to brighten this up. I'd like to make this a little lighter. I'm going to add some white paint to make my red a little bit more pink. Or I want to make this a bit bolder, a bit stronger, a bit darker. I want to go ahead and add some black and make my red a little bit stronger black. So let's see what this feels like. All elements have a default background color of transparent. Our nav element currently appears to have a cyan background, but because the element behind it has a background color set to cyan, it's not really. Oh gosh, that's why. So our nav element looks cyan because the element behind it is cyan. Let's add a background color to the nav element. So it uses the same cyan hue, but has 80% saturation and 20% lightness to change the tone and shade. We can do that. We can do that. So we're going to look for our nav element. And we're going to add a background color. Yeah. We're going to do HSL. And we've been asked to use the same cyan. So that means we use the exact same hue. We're going to change the saturation here. We're going to say, well, give me 80%. How's that going to be? Oh, percentage sign is probably going to be better. 80%. And you know what? Give me 25%. Ooh, oh, I actually quite like that. So what's happened here? So here, we've got 90%. So almost naturally bright, just 10% of gray. And here we've added 20% more gray. Oh, do we want to see what 180% does? I don't even. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's doing. Oh, heck. And we've added this 25%, so it's less light. So here we've got 35%. It is 10% lighter than our nav bar. So we've gone ahead and added more gray and made it less light. And I think, you know what? I was a little bit mean earlier when I was like, ugh, orange and teal. But this sort of dark teal and teal, this is really, we feel a little bit more okay with this. This is working for me. We're going to run all tests. I mean, we've done more than 50%. It's just we're in a incognito browser, so it doesn't respect our progress. It's terrible. We're going to apply a gradual CSS linear gradient. And you say, what? Say, cool. Let's look at the words gradual CSS linear gradient. Let's look at these one at a time, because these are a lot of big visual design words back to back, right? This is a little bit much. So it's going to be gradual. So it's going to be just a little bit at a time. Okay, that's how gradual is going to work. It's CSS. Cool. I think we've got that. It means we're going to use CSS to make it. Linear. What do we think linear is? Yeah. Oh, and Tunnel makes a good point saying, you know what? CSS is one of these things that didn't make any sense until I started making stuff with it. And I'm really relieved to hear that, because I've been sort of pushing y'all like, oh, go ahead and start your tribute pages. Go ahead and start your project, because it's going to make more and more sense the more you use it, the more you touch it. So here, we can use a linear gradient function in a background. Here's the general syntax, and that's going to feel weird. So background is equal to this linear gradient keyword. And then we've got our gradient direction, which way the gradient is going to start. The first color, the second color, the third color. And we could just keep adding more and more colors as long as we want. And instead of saying, oh, let me explain what a gradient is, let's make one, yeah? So the first argument here where it talks about gradient direction, that's going to be degrees. So 90 degrees is going to make a horizontal gradient. 45 degrees is going to make a diagonal. Wait, from bottom left to top right. Yeah, I'm reversed. I'm not helping. And then the arguments, following arguments specify the order of colors. So let's get an example. We're just going to copy and paste this example. Well, let's look at it first. Oh, look at all this deep chaos. We've got a lot going on here. Let's go ahead and copy this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So there's a lot going on here. There's immediately a lot going on here, right? Let's talk our way through it. Let's just chill out and ignore the fact that that's actually quite an aggressive color. There's a lot going on here. To look at what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and say, well, we're going to set the background. And we already know about that. We feel okay with that. And we're going to use this linear gradient function where we say, hey, I want you to do something, build me a linear gradient. Here I'm saying it's 90 degrees. I want you to make that horizontal for me. What if we wanted to make it diagonal? Woof. They're really, yeah, you can set that anywhere you want. Keep getting weird with that. So we've set it, let's put it back to 90 just so it's nice and easy to talk through. And here we've started with, please give me red as the first color. Now, please give me yellow as the second color. And then to add deep chaos into your life, it says, give me RGB 204, quite a bit of red, 204, the same amount of green, and 255, which gives us this lovely periwinkle. And you know what? We could just keep adding colors. And as long, oh, let's give it a hex as well. Go ahead and use platypus's favorite color. Oh, that is not good, is it? Oh, that green coming into that magenta is reasonably aggressive. I apologize. But this is just to sort of aggressively demonstrate that you can go ahead and you can have as many gradients as you want in this. You probably wouldn't want to do this on your website unless your website was advertising. You know what? I couldn't even tell you what you would want from this. Let's delete all of this though. And our semicolon. And let's try one all over again. So we know that we're setting the background. And we're setting that to a linear gradient. We're going to set that to 35 degrees we've been asked. And we're going to start with the color CC, FF. And now we're going to add the color FF, CC. Oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Background. Did I spell gradient wrong? This seems like... Oh gosh, is it? Oh heck. Oh, thank you so much. You are Very, very, and no semicolon. Look at this. It is absolutely scandalous that they let me at a keyboard as discussed. Oh, do you know what? I like this a lot. I find this very calming. Thank you so much. Y'all are just like, Jess, Jess, Jess. And I appreciate your exasperated patience. Let's hustle along. Woof. That is intense, isn't it? A lot of this is a lot. So the repeating linear gradient function is going to feel like the same thing, except it repeats. So here we've got linear gradients that, as advertised, repeat. They're, again, not very beautiful. They're going to use really, really similar arguments. So here we say 90 degrees, not percent. We're going to start with yellow. We're going to go into blue. We're going to go into green. But here we're saying, I'm going to tell you how large I'd like each of these sizes to be. Yeah. So because we started with yellow, it blends the yellow into the blue. Yeah. Think about the color stops as pairs, where the two colors blend together is the advice here. Sorry, I'm just allergic to everything, even in the rain. Everything's terrible in manageable ways. Let's make stripes by changing the repeating linear gradient to use a gradient angle of 45 degrees. Degrees, not percentage. Thank you very much. Woof. A lot, isn't it? We're going to set the first two color stops to yellow. And the final two color stops to black. You can't just mean yellow, yellow, black, black. Woof. I can't possibly mean what they mean. Oh, do you know, I was trying to make this much, wow, that is really loud. I thought this was going to be much more complicated than it is. Oh, you know, they must mean something very fancy. Nope, just yellow, yellow, black, black, for some very bumblebee, very traffic feeling stripes, eh? Very high contrast. It's a very like either you're going to get stung or knocked down by a car. Oh, create texture by adding a subtle pattern as a background image. The mistake I made with my first website when I was 13 is I added a very loud, aggressive picture because it was cool and nobody could read anything because I'm rubbish. Right, all 13-year-olds are a little bit rubbish. I was rubbish. I had to work very hard to remain this rubbish. So we're going to set, as the body selector, we're going to set the background to, I'm not even sure if this is the syntax. Here, background property supports the URL function. I think the URL function is going to feel a lot like those linear gradients we just learned, right? So let's see if we can use the same format we just used, which is background. And just like we said linear gradient, here let's say URL and see if this works. Eggroll, I'm so sorry, my lovely. I'm going to ask you to go back and watch the video. We've just finished that one. Yep, I'm so sorry. So we've just covered that one. It's no problem. I think the lessons at the end of this are going to get reasonably complex. So if it's okay, I'm going to send you back to look at the replay just to be, oh, heck, that did work. Just to be very teachery. So we've used the exact same syntax we just learned, which is background and then saying URL and adding these parentheses. And now we've got this very, very subtle background going on. Everything's chill. We're going to run our tests. If we've got time at the end, we'll go back and take a look at that linear gradient again. So we're going to do some weird stuff to elements. We're going to use the transform scale property. So transform is a CSS property and scale is the function. Yeah. So transform means we're going to transform it, and scale is, oh, well, I want you to transform the size. We're going to find ball 2. I'm going to say, hey, transform. Oh, heck, I'm wrong. I love being wrong. And here the scale is, it wants me to double it. So 2, twice as much. That's fine. Oh, to 1.5. I think that looks like about 1.5, doesn't it? Let's give it a shot. Ooh. The transform proper. Oh gosh. It probably needs me to be properly. The transform property for ball 2, transform. Oh, do you not like the lack of Am I doing something? You don't like the lack of semicolon. I love the very aggressive enforcement there where it's just like, you need a semicolon. Don't mess about, Jess. I will not let you go anywhere until you add your semicolon. Fair. So, remember when we learned about hover? We learned about hover for links. And one of you asked a really good question, which is, oh, can I do something to an H1 on hover? I was like, oh, I don't know. And yeah, we could. So we can transform an element on hover. So remember that this :hover is sort of a pseudo class. It's a class or pseudo selector. It's something that only really exists when you're hovering. So here, we're going to change the hover state of the div. So we say div hover. So only when the div is hovering. Oh, CSS loves its grammar. You are not wrong. So syntax really of a programming language or a language like CSS, the syntax really feels like a grammar to me, doesn't it? Here we're going to transform and we're going to scale. We're going to scale it to 1.1 and we're going to add our semicolon these times because we differentiate using transform scale function instead of padding. Moomin, this is a really good question. Can you give me a little more information about what you mean by differentiate? So if I wanted to, so are you asking if I could use scale transform to morph an element instead of using padding? If that's the question, yes. Yeah, here's another way to do a similar thing, but I'm not quite sure if that was the question you're trying to ask. When I hover over this, it should get like a little tiny bit bigger. Huh. I see no change at all. Oh gosh, do you know why? It's because I am a bad teacher. If you are looking out for me. Oh yeah, you can create the inner space using padding, and you know what? This gets to be a little bit challenging. So you can accomplish the same visual effect using padding or using transform. That's possible. But what you're doing under the hood is going to be different. So if you're padding, you're saying, oh, I'm changing the padding. I'm changing the relationship between this and the elements around it. Whereas when you're using transform scale, you're changing the size of this element. And most of the time, that's not going to be a big deal. But if there's like responsive reasons, so if somebody's changing the shape of something or somebody's using different screen sizes, you just want to make sure that you're testing that using transform instead of padding. Doesn't mean weird stuff for users. So again, I think in a lot of cases you can use scale instead of padding if what you're looking for is a visual effect, but you want to go ahead and test, which doesn't change anything. You want to test anyway. So this still isn't working, and that's fine. Do you not like this? Doesn't like the space. Woo. That's what you get for picking a rubbish teacher. So once we get rid of the space that should not be there, but the hover effect still works, yeah. So let's go ahead and continue to hustle along. This feels pretty cool so far. Whew. We're going to use the CSS transform property Skew X to skew along an x-axis. We're going to push some stuff over. Yeah. And explaining what this means is just going to feel weird. Let's just push some stuff over, right? Yeah. So the idea of bottom, we're going to push the bottom over. We're still using the transform property. Here we're using the Skew X function. And we're going to add our semicolon right now because I always mess that up. We're going to push it over by 24 degrees. So just shove it over. You say, okay, but here it's got a minus. What happens if we have a minus? Oh, so we can push it that way with a positive. Oh, that's a good question. Does the X and Skew X need to be capitalized? So is not. But we've been given this capitalized, so I'm going to leave it capitalized. I'm a nerd. We're going to run our tests. Everything's going to continue to be fine. So we've pushed something along the x-axis. Let's push something on the y-axis. So here, x is horizontal, y is vertical. We're going to push something up or push something down. We feel all right with that? We're going to come to the top one and we're going to try transform again. Ooh. And transform is the property. And skew y is the function. Go ahead and add our semicolon because that already got us once. We want that to be minus 10 degrees. Whoop. Oh, weird. So we've sort of pushed that down 10 degrees. Again, if you say, Jess, I have no idea what's going on here, I say, fantastic. I'm going to lovingly encourage you to go ahead and just play with this. Push this in every direction your heart desires until it feels a little less weird. And if it doesn't, come back and push it a little bit tomorrow. We are going to create, so one of you I was going to say one of you who's so smart and good. That doesn't narrow it down. One of you was saying like, oh no, what if I don't understand this whole penguin? And I'm like, it's chill. I don't understand the whole penguin. Like there's a lot going on. But here we're going to learn about creating graphics with CSS. And we've talked about if you go to CodePen or stuff like that, you'll see folks who create impossible works of art using this. But we're just going to do a couple of little tiny bibby things. Yeah, super chill. Oh. Does skewing affect the rectangle size? Now that's a really good question. Oh, that's a philosophical question. So technically the rectangle is the same size. I think you're still going to have the same number of pixels that are red or blue. But if you push it, the rectangle that contains that element is going to be larger, isn't it? Yeah, because in one direction now it's a longer rectangle. It depends on your philosophy. You've still got I think you still have the same number of colored pixels, but yeah, the sort of total area of that rectangle that encapsulates that element. Yeah. What if you had a fixed box and you skew something inside? Cool. You know what happens when you ask a good question. Wait, what do you mean a fixed box, hon? So many thanks to my beloved colleague who was just like, here is MDN on Skew, which may answer some of our questions. So if you have a fixed box and you skew something inside, I think then you're going to have issues with overlap. Yep, Egg Roll saying, hey, you can't use Skew X and Skew Y simultaneously, which I wasn't aware of, and which is super useful. So it sounds like you've got to pick a direction to push in. So if you've got a parent element that is fixed in size, and you have a child element inside it that you're using skew in, depending on how it's going to be arranged, it's either going to be overlapped by the parent element or begin to overlap the parent element, is my guess. But yeah, I'd recommend just giving that a try. So, hey, what would happen if your homework is to get weird? So we're going to manipulate different selectors and properties. We can make shapes. One of the easier ones is a crescent moon shape. And for this challenge, we're going to work with a box shadow property that sets the shadow of an element along with a border radius property that controls the roundness of an element. So we're going to create a round transparent object with a crisp shadow that's slightly offset to the side. And the shadow is going to be the moon shape we're looking for. All right. So remember that when we create a box shadow, the property takes the values in this order for offset X, offset Y, blur radius, and spread radius. And you don't have to have blur radius or spread radius, but I bet we will this time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a moon shape out of this square. So first, where's my square? Oh, here we go. First, I'm being asked to turn it transparent. And then I want to set my border radius property to 50%. 50%, not 50 pixels, 50%. Oh, how relaxing. I'm already getting a very, very strong crescent moon vibe, but we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more with this. Finally, change the box shadow property and set the offset X to 25 pixels. Well, that's done. Set the offset Y to 10 pixels. Okay. Blur radius to 0. Oh, and then I also want the spread radius to be 0. Oh, and now I want to make this blue. And while we've just followed the instructions here, you absolutely know what I'm going to recommend. Am I going to recommend getting weird? Yeah. 50% here meaning the lightness. Cool. Let's go ahead and make even more complicated shapes. Oh, a heart shape. Oh, this is going to be so hard. So we're going to have to learn more pseudo elements. The colon before and colon after. So colon before means that it's going to add something before a selected element. Colon after is going to add it after. So here we've got our heart, rules for our heart class, and we've already got the pseudo class .heart.after and .heart.before. And this div right here is called heart. So that's what our heart class is. I have no idea what's going to go on. I have no idea how we're going to do this. So let's go ahead and have a little battle with it together. We'd come all the way down. So for before and after to work properly, they have to have a content property. The property is usually used to add things like photo or text to a selective element. So even if we're not using it, we still have to have that content property, but just leave it an empty string. So here, quotation mark, but nothing inside there. That's fine. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. So transform the heart element on the screen. Well, transform the element on the screen into a heart. In the heart after selector, change the background color to pink. Okay. The border radius to 50%. So let's make it a pink circle. This doesn't feel like a heart, does it? Next, target the element with the class heart and fill in the transform property. Rotate the function with 45 degrees. So here, we haven't used rotate at all, but I think the rotate function is going to have the same format as other functions. Ooh, do you know what? I think I might know what we're doing with this heart. Are y'all getting a little bit of an idea? And then the heart before, let's come on down. We've got some stuff going on, but we've learned that we need this content property to be an empty string. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Oh, heck. And what was going on is all of this code existed, but because we didn't have our content set up right, it was just ignoring it. It was saying, I don't know what you mean. Something after this is broken. We're going to go ahead and just ignore everything because we don't understand what's going on if we don't have this content set properly. We're going to run our tests. We're zipping through this. Everything's fine. You love how I'm saying everything's fine just as it's getting difficult, isn't it? Because now, are we at animation? We are at animation. So we're going to learn about how CSS keyframes and animation properties work. And you say, oh, Jess, I tried to do this on my own and I didn't understand it. And I say, well, that's fine. I'm going to go through this with you and I don't understand it. So CSS animation is not impossible. You can learn this. You can get great at it. When you get great at it, come back and teach me some more. But this is also a little bit of a specialty thing. So I know a lot of web developers who don't use a lot of CSS animation, and their lives are rich and full and fine. So we need to know about animation properties and the keyframes rule. So animation properties. Oh, cool. So Ekrol's asking a really good question. What does it mean an empty string? That's such a good question. So a string is some text. Yeah. And for HTML or CSS, or for most programming languages, many programming languages, your string is going to be within quotation marks. Say, hey, I'm going to set this string. I'm going to give you a piece of text or a URL. It's going to be between quotation marks. But we didn't need a URL and we didn't need any text. So we set it to an empty string, which is just a couple quotation marks with nothing in them. Isn't that such a weird concept to say, hey, I need a string to move forward? But why does it need to be that? Why not just leave it out? Because your browser expects that syntax. So it says, hey, I know we must have a string to move forward. You say, well, I don't have a string to give you. I'm going to give you an empty string. And your browser's smart, but it's not that smart. So when you give it an empty string, it goes, oh yeah, fabulous. It's a string with nothing in it. It's a string. Mad Store is making a fantastic point to say, Don't forget that a space is something. Yeah, so an empty string is going to have to be with no space as well. So why does it need to be that instead of just leaving it out? Because of weird tradition and the way systems were built. Specifying just because. So we're going to learn about animation name first. Sets the name of an animation, which is later used by keyframes to tell CSS which rules for which animations. And animation duration sets the length of time for the animation. Keyframes is to specify what exactly happens within the animation over the duration. So you say, here's the name of what we're doing. Here's how long we're going to be doing it. And this keyframes is saying, hey, you set the duration for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever. Keyframes is saying, cool. Here's what we're going to do within that time. And this, again, feels super weird. Let's go ahead and let's copy this and see if just copying this is going to work. Where would I put this? Would I put it here? It doesn't seem like it's going to work right either. Oh, yes, I see. That's because I needed to say rect and not. You know what? Maybe fussier. So we're going to create an animation for the element with the ID of rect by setting the animation name to rainbow. Let's look at what that looks up here. So animation name rainbow. Okay. So we've set that to rainbow. That feels okay. What duration do you want? Animation duration to 4 seconds. Is it just 4? Do I just say 4? Oh, I want an S for seconds, don't I? That's fine. So it looks like I go ahead and I build that, and then the keyframes is completely separate. Yeah. And here, at keyframes. Okay. Come back down again to keep it dizzy. At keyframes rainbow, set the background color to Oh, I see. You can tell I did not review this before I came to join you all. So 0%. So when we first start this, so it's asking if I'm coding, and not especially effectively. We're doing some CSS animation stuff. I confess this is one of the things I'm choppier at. Really, what I'm doing is bumbling around, and my incredibly beloved students are really bailing me out. Blue. So when we first start, it's going to be blue. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. It feels like it's actually doing what I want it to. That's very exciting. 50% of the way through this animation, we want to set the background color to green. Yeah, that feels all right. And then at the end of the animation, when we're 100% of the way through those 2-second timers, we want the background color yellow. Yeah. Oh, isn't it? Yeah. You know what? I chuckle about being terrible at CSS and even worse at CS animation, but that feels like that actually worked, didn't it? Let's run our. Look at that. Look how forgiving. Look how merciful Free Code Camp is. Whew. And you say, Jess, but you just copied that and you don't really understand it. And I say, yep. So, just like many, many things, CSS animation is going to. So, yeah, the animation can only be done once, or I bet money we're going to learn how to repeat it. So, unless you said otherwise, my understanding is the default is to only do it once. Yeah. But so we've got a couple options here. Here, I think looking it up is going to be feel better than getting weird. But looking it up and then getting weird is where I'd go with this. How do I make a looping animation? Ooh, how do I make an animation that flows into another animation? Oh, how can I make a deeply chaotic kaleidoscope of vomiting colors? And when I say how can I mean how can one? We can use CSS keyframes to change the color in its hover state. Remember we talked about the hover pseudo class? This is going to be cool. Yeah, right now, look at this. Look at this button. This button brings no joy into my cold, dead heart. All right, so this showing what it would look like if we wanted to change the width. Say, hey, when you hover over this image, the animation name is width. 500 milliseconds, that's gonna be fast. And then I want to jump right to make it 40 pixels wide. Yeah, and that would go ahead and change the shape of that. We're gonna use CSS keyframes. To change the background color of the button element so it's 4791 D0 when a user hovers over it. The keyframes rule should only have an entry for 100%. Rule names. Animation name should be background color. Oh, okay. It doesn't care what we name it. Cool button. We all right with that? We're all right with the animation name cool button? I'm reliably uncool. So the animation name is cool button. The background color is this hex right here. And do you know what color is that going to be? And here, keyframes, cool button. And then we 100%. Oh gosh, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm wrong. So I want to name that cool button. And we actually changed the background color here, isn't it? So here we say at keyframe. Y'all are so patient. Keyframes. What is the syntax again? Thank you. After the cool button, I am missing a semicolon. Thank you. You are merciful. The keyframes here, I'm going to say at 100%, make the background color. And semicolon again. Get away from me. What do we think? Babes, why aren't you doing that thing? All right. A missing name for key. Oh gosh, yes. See? Oh, do you know what? That's immensely satisfying, isn't it? Ah. Oh, is animation name. Oh, the animation name. The animation name is supposed to be background color. How boring. I mean, it's much more human readable, isn't it? There we are. I mean, yes, you should read the instructions and you should be much, much more careful than I am. But I just wanted to express myself, and apparently that's a crime. So we're going to modify the fill mode of an animation. Say, okay, well, you know what? After, and this is the point that showed me just a second ago to say, the animation's just done once, right? I said, well, I mean, in these examples, yeah, but I bet we're getting to it. And say, hey, you know what? After 500 milliseconds has passed, the button just clicks back to the old one. We say, cool. Let's go ahead and say, once we've done the animation, we want that sort of transformation. We want that animation to stick. Once you've done an animation, stay there. Stay with our changes. Yeah. So we're going to use the animation fill mode of forwards. And here we've got a lot of guardrails. Look at this, where it's like, hey, don't touch anything except for right in here. And I think animation fill mode forwards. Don't look back. Past is gone. Once you fill this with light blue, once you're hovered over it, I want it to stay light blue. Yeah. Go it. Yeah. And now I think that'll just hang on. I'll get some water to demonstrate that I think it's just going to stay blue. Also, because, yeah, I'm not talking to myself, but I'm not talking to myself, and it gets a little tiring. We're going to run our tests. Everything continues to be fine. I mean, scary. CSS animation's a little bit scary. Look at that. What happens if it's set backwards? Egg roll, you know what I'm going to tell you. So even more than that, I think the question would be, yeah, what happens if it's set backwards? Give it a shot. Test it out. I genuinely don't know. What are the syntaxes for what did we just learn? What did we just learn? Animation fill mode. What are my arguments with that? Okay, so backwards. Ah, okay. So I've got you. This was a really good question. Actually, let's look at it together. Do you know what's really cool is MDN answers this question about animation fill mode with a animation. So none doesn't do nothing. Forward, we've just learned that. Forward means stay where you're at. Backwards means come on back. What do we think both is going to look like? Huh. Feels a lot like forwards. Let me go ahead and throw this to y'all. So backwards returns it to the beginning. Girl, you always ask the best questions, and I really do appreciate it. So we're going to create movement using CSS animation. We can push. Cool. So we're going to use CSS offset properties. So we're going to sort of push this around by offsetting it. We can do that, yeah. And here, the top 0 pixels, I think that's how we're going to start push, isn't it? So, show me that again. So we see that here we've got top, top, but top actually pushes that down. So it's going to feel maybe a lot like margins did and a lot like padding did, where it's like, oh, hey, when I say top, what I really mean is push it from the top or offset it from the top, which I think the more of these we find, where when you say top, it means push from the top or offset from the top, the more natural that's going to feel. Because, like, the first couple of times I was like, hey, when I say top, I mean moving towards the bottom. Y'all were understandably like, no, 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 I refuse. I reject that. I reject that on an emotional level. No, it's bad. And I was like, yeah, I respect that. But here, we've done this a bunch, but we're a lot more comfortable with this. This is chill. So we're going to come down. Ooh, we're going to add a horizontal motion using the left property. So it says, if we're offsetting from the left, where are we pushing it? At 0%. Oh gosh. Are you not able to find the MDN skew? Are you not able to access that? Hmm. So we've got somebody saying that they are having a hard time with the MDN link. Does that one look okay? So that's I know it's cruel to say it's working just fine on my machine, but Isaiah, if you're still having a problem with that, you give me a fuss again and I'll just give you another one. So we're going to offset this left 0%. And remember, when we push left, it moves. Bum, ba, da, dum. I think it's going to move right, don't you? So now we've got page not found. How bizarre. Can you all let me know what browsers you're using? Or, oh gosh, do you know what it might be? What countries you're in? If you go to, all right, I'm going to send you a little permission. If you go to this website and search for Skew, does that work? You know, I'm gonna go and find a friend who works on this team and have a word with them and be like, excuse me, my students were having a difficult time accessing this, but that's just not going to stand. Yeah. Let me know if searching for Skew on this MDM works. Because yeah. Let me know if searching for Skew gets it. Oh, the closing parentheses is messing in the link. That may well be it. Check and see if searching for Skew works. That might very well be me being an entire goofball. While we do that, we're going to move this. I'm going to push to the left. We're moving it to the left. 25 pixels. Hey, look at that. And then we're coming down here and we're going to keep pushing it to the left. And it's going to end at minus 25 pixels. Oh, whooping. Okay, the second link works. Okay, that was my mistake. I just cut off. Yeah. The second link works okay? Cool. Everything's fine. That's me. Oh, the keyframes rule for 0% should have an. Oh, yes. 0 pixels, not 0%. That's me being reliably bullish. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. Oh, look how pretty this is. We're going to fade an element from the left to the right. We're just going to go ahead and say, hey, and we've talked a little bit about opacity before, haven't we? Here we're going to say, hey, as we push this, gradually fade it out, make it more and more opaque. Yeah, So we're going to come and find the keyframes. And where it says 50%, I'm going to set the opacity, I would spell wrong, to 50%. Oh gosh, you know what? That's not how opacity works. And I know it's really hard to see because it's very, very light, but we've got that sort of whispering away to nothing because we've set the opacity. And remember, the opacity runs on a scale from 0 to completely opaque to 1, which is not see-through at all. Not percentages. I'm a bit rubbish. Oh, we're so close. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. Whoop. And you know what? Who was it who was asking this really good question earlier? I'm going to find it. I'm going to put that back up on screen. Ha ha ha. Magstore is like, this animation's only done once. I find this very disappointing. And I say, okay. How about we go ahead and we keep the animation going? You know, I wasn't going to let you down. Or much more accurately, you know, Free Code Camp wasn't going to let you down. I consistently let y'all down. Oh, that's where I am. So what it is the animation iteration count. An iteration is how many times you're going to repeat something. So really, it's the animation count. How many times do you want to keep doing this? Here, the animation will stop running after 3 times, but we can make it run forever by setting it to infinite. So, yeah, this is absolutely where if you think that the CSS animation stuff is kind of scary, chilling out here is a nice, comfortable way to do it and say, oh, let's make the ball bounce 12 times. Let's make it bounce forever. Yeah, this is chill. Keyframes bounce. Oh, here we are. Animation iteration count. And we may make this infinite. Please go forever. I never want you to stop. Magstore, is this satisfying for you? That we can either keep it going for a certain number of times, or we can just, you know what, this is making me feel faintly ill. It's very bouncy. But if you want, you can have the animation iteration count continue until the very world has been crumbled to dust. Or at least your own computer. The squish is right. Like, it makes a little bit of a sound in your head. Cool. If you've got the cash, kicking them $5 a month is a cool thing to do. Don't you spend money you don't have, though. Oh, this is going to be so nice. Oh, cool. So you're saying the bouncy ball reminds you of the basics of 2D animation, which, do you know what? If you ever feel like teaching a 2D animation class, I'll be up in the front row being like, asking goofy questions and making many typos. So we're going to use infinite animation count to make this heartbeat. So we want the back class and the heart class to have, okay. So the back class, we get animation, what iteration? So that's for back, but it looks like that's not exactly what it's asked for. I mean, I like this, but so we probably need, and what do we love to do is copy. Let's check and see if, is that what it wants? Does it want me to have a pink pulsing beating heart? It does indeed. Oh, I'm so used to being wrong that I was sure I was wrong again. We're going to, I like this a lot. We're going to change the rates at which we animate things. So we've using animation iteration count for the timings, but we're going to go ahead and use the keyframes rule. So these both decrease in size and opacity at the 20% mark, but we're going to change *1, the keyframes rule, to 50%. So we're going to take them out of sync. Let's take a look at what this means in the code. So right now, the animation happens when it's 20% of the way through its 1 second animation. That makes sense. So both of these have a 1 second animation time, and they both transform at 20% through. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to knock them out of sync. So they're both still animating once per second, but the first star says, boom, 50% of the way through this 1 second, that's when I go. Whereas *2 is like, hey, I'm going to go first because I only need to get 20% of the way through this. That's all right. Oh, we may finish today. We may finish the whole thing. And if we finish the whole thing, Egro, I think you had a question about, remind me what you had a question about, and when we get to the end of this, and I'll hustle way back and sort that for you. We can look at it again. So animate multiple elements at variable rates. We can do that. We're going to change the animation duration at different things. Oh gosh, don't thank me. It's literally my job. So, thank you. Sorry, that makes me sound very ungrateful. Don't you thank me. So we're going to change. We're going to knock these out of sync, not by changing when they trigger, but by changing their animation second, or changing their animation duration. So 1 second. This is 9/10 of a second. And this is, the diff lesson, yeah. 1.1 second. We've knocked them out of sync again, but this time by changing their animation time. Yeah. CSS animation's still hard, but it's a little bit less scary, right? If Jess can do it, right? So, keywords. The animation timing function property controls how quickly an animated element changes over the duration of the animation. If it's a car, it'll be moving from A to B at a given time. Yeah. There's some predefined words. So ease means start slow, speed up in the middle, and slows down again. Ease out is quick in the beginning and slows down. Ease in, slow at the beginning and leaves up. Or linear, which is just regular old speed. It just stays nice and steady. Everything stays fine. Let's see what it wants us to do with these. So let's add an animation timing function, and let's set ball1 to linear or ball2 to ease out. Yeah. Ball1, animation timing. Set this to linear. Ooh, look at that automatically change. So ball1 is now dropping at a very consistent speed, whereas ball2 is doing its own thing. And what ball2 is doing is ease, which is the default value. Slow, fast, slow. But we're going to go ahead and change it. We're going to shake things up for ball2, right? Animation, timing function. We're going to change that one to ease out. Listen now, a little bit faster at the start, nice and slow at the bottom. Yeah. So if you're the kind of person who maybe likes color keywords better than hex codes, this might be a really, really good one for you. They've got the same animation duration, so they end together. That's very relaxing. Look at this. I bet they're going to give us something terrible. Oh, look at this. Learn how Bezier curves work? I refuse to. In CSS animations, Bezier curves are used with the cubic Bezier function. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'm helpless. The shape of the curve represents how the animation plays out. The curve lives on a 1-by-1 coordinate system. The x-axis of this coordinate system is the duration of the animation, and the y-axis is the change of the animation. The cubic Bezier function consists of 4 main points that sit on this grid: P0, P1, P2, and P3. P0 and P3 are set for you. They're the beginning and end points of where you start and where you finish. Okay. And you set the x and y values for the other 2 points. You place them on the Did y'all just zip through this? Cuz I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to chuckle and say good, but like woof, same. I mean, woof. This is done in CSS by declaring the x and y values of P1 and P2 anchor points in the form x1, y1, x2. Woof, I'm getting a hard flashback to like high school. Okay, good. You love how cocky I was. I'm like, oh, we've only got 2 more of these left. We can go back and review. And oh no, y'all ready for how much time do we have left? A solid 29 minutes of me sobbing, because that's what we're about to get. Putting it all together, here's an example of a Bezier curve in action. Animation timing function, cubic Bezier, 0.25, 0.25, 0.75, 0.75. Okay. In the example above, the x and y values are equivalent to each point. What? Which, if you remember from geometry class, results in a line that extends from the origin. You know what? Sometimes when I have a tutorial and I have no idea what's going on, I'll just do the thing. Let's just do the thing and see if it feels any more solid. For the element, it seems like a better use of y'all's time than me sobbing. I'll sob after this. For the element with the ID of ball 1, change the value of the what? Oh, use the point values in the example above. Fine. That's fine. I will absolutely use the point values in the example above. Ball 1, where you been? Oh, Wikipedia was a good one for this. I bet the Wikipedia for this is going to make me cry. Let's look at that in a second. I love to cry. Okay, ball 1. We want cubic Bezier. I mean, it's just the internet. What's the worst? And it wants me to go ahead and copy these from the example, which is good because if they wanted me to calculate these again, there would just be an extended amount of crying, wouldn't there? First from me and then from you all. Oh, heck. This would be good. Okay. So this is correct. And I have no idea why this is correct. Isn't that fun? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and grab the wow. Oh, y'all. You know what? I'm going to throw the Wikipedia in here. And who was it? Monica was saying, oh, the Wikipedia was very good for this one. Monica is officially, I mean, I don't think it was a secret, much smarter than I am. Because let's go ahead and let's get our little ticky box here because let's get that. We'll go to the next challenge. But let's look at what the Bezier curve looks like, the Wikipedia, because, oh, okay. Huh. I got you. No, I don't. Everything's bad forever. These points being laid out, this feels a lot less scary, doesn't it? So P0 is where you start, P3 is where we end, and P1 or 2 maps where we curve the. No, gosh, I hope it didn't sound like I was picking on you for being wonderfully smart and good at stuff. Um, just like the skewed rectangle we learned about before. I'm glad that some of y'all are. Look at this. Look. I just, no. I mean, respectfully, no. Oh, these are how we control vector illustrations. I love how everybody else is just like, Jess, this is basic geography. What's wrong with you? And I said, what's wrong with me? This is basic geography. Did I say geography? Geometry. Woof. I'm delighted that you all are much more comfortable with geometry than I am. I think I've got a lot of high school math class trauma to live through, and I'll go ahead and do that on my own time. But this does indeed look really helpful. The P1 and P2 are much more reassuring than I initially thought. Let's use a Bezier curve to move a graphic. And those of you who can feel this in your soul, please scream at me and point me, lovingly scream at me and point me in the right direction, because I don't know what's going on here. Like, I get that it's basic geometry, not geography. No, gosh, I want y'all to enjoy this. I mean, what's the point of Monica's asking if woof is a Minnesota oofta? And just getting to say the phrase Minnesota oofta out loud. Is oofta when you have sort of a where you have to very briefly confront the fully formed vision of your own death, but in a socially acceptable, calm way, where you're just like, oh, yeah, that's everything I've ever been afraid of. If that is what a Minnesota oofta is, that may indeed be what my woof is. So, a previous challenge discussed the ease out keyword that describes an animation change that speeds up at first and slows down at the end. On the right, ease out versus linear. Okay. So here it's saying similar animation progressions to ease out keyword can be achieved using a custom cubic Bezier curve function. My argument would be, if you can get a similar effect by just typing ease out, why are you asking me to do math? Like, this seems unkind, but all right, let's Magdora is saying an oof sound happens in Roblox when characters die. Similar to me dying on the inside, just a woof. High school about to say geology again. I have too much math avoidance. I'm trying to say everything but geometry. Let's do the thing. Remember that I will not remember that cubic Bezier functions start with P0 at 0, 0 and move to all right, cool. You know what? Who was it? Was it my beloved platypus who said that math teachers often say you don't need to understand the thing, just do the thing? Yeah, let's just do the thing. Let's change yeah. You don't need to understand why, just do it. I refuse to understand why, but let's do it. So animation timing function. We're going to take this perfectly good linear and we're going to ruin it. Cubic Bezier. I'm going to set it to 0 for P0. We're going to set a 0 to P1. Set 0.58 for P2. We're going to set it to 1 for P3. Oh, this is really exciting. So they both do largely the same thing. They're really careful not to say these. Oh, gosh, have I gone a bit blurry? Nope. Those of you over on Twitch, are you having a difficult time seeing things all of a sudden, or is that just my computer being rubbish? Look at me. I'm now doing like tech support to try and avoid contemplating geometry. It's probably just me having a quiet panic about maths. Let's run our tests. Please, for the love of everything. Nope, nope. Okay, cool. I was like, give me something that's not a Bezier curve. And this assignment said, no, I refuse. This challenge animates the element to replicate the movement of balls being juggled. So, okay, so here is an actual reason you would be using this. So, a custom Bezier curve is going to give us the sort of tossing back and forth of, hmm, yeah, yeah. So, animation timing function for green. Zero point 0.311, 0.441, 0. Oh, heck. 0.444 and 1.649. Okay. I readily confess that the green does look much more juggly than the rest of the balls. And I begrudgingly accept that geometry was the right fix for this technical problem. And I think, ooh. I think that was our last one from this unit, which is good because if they gave me one more Bezier curve, you all were going to get an absolutely blank screen as I curled up on the floor and then weeping gently, because the mic's up here and the floor's up there. This is just previewing what we're going to be doing next week. So we're going to be doing applied accessibility next week. And the first thing it is lovingly fussing at us to is that we must add alt text to images or else. Oh, Tanya's pointing out that, the Bezier curve as a curved line in space is starting from the origin from one point. So here we're just setting the intermediate points. I mean, that I say just a lot when I'm teaching. I know it's unfair. And do you know what? This does make quite a bit more sense. I will aim to be, I'm not going to lie, significantly less panicked when I go ahead and do this lesson tomorrow with the other learners. So your homework is to try and go ahead and get 50% of the way through the applied accessibility. This one is going to be a lot faster than most of them. So there should be a lot of extra time. And what we're going to go ahead and do now is jump on back to, first off, does anybody have any questions about anything except for the Bezier curve? I mean, you can ask questions about the Bezier curve, but we're going to crowdsource them from the rest of the learners with the answers. Or did you all have questions about anything else? Eggroll, I think you had a question about something. Which lesson was that? We can go back and do it again. Oh, the linear gradient. Yeah, let's go back to the linear gradients. It's going to be look at how much we did. We deserve a vacation. And you're 50% of the way through the course now. Hover, animation, subtle pattern. CSS linear gradient. So, and what was the question about this one? No, hush. I mean, look, you can hate CSS as much as I hate any kind of maths, and we'll meet in the middle. So what do we need to do to on the div element for applying a linear gradient? Let's go ahead and do this one again, just because I thought this one was really, really pretty. And technically it's geometry as well, but it freaks me out a little bit less. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and say the background, and we got to be careful that it's not the background color. Here, the background, we want to set it to a linear gradient. That's pretty chill. And then we've got a bunch of arguments that we're going to be putting in. The first one we're going to do is what direction? And here it's at 90 degrees horizontal, but go ahead and anybody yell a degree at me. Give me a degree and give me some colors. And we'll go ahead and custom build our own gradient. I'm going to put 70 degrees in for now. So the arguments we put in are the gradient direction, which is going to be in degrees, and then we can put in as many colors as we want. And you can do whatever way you want to set these colors. If you want to say pink, oh heck, I need a and blue. Oh, look how relaxing that is. We can add in a hex color. Yeah. What we do to set a linear gradient is say, please make my background of my div a linear gradient. I want it 70 degrees or 90 degrees if I want it horizontal. Vertical? Horizontal. Ah, it's a horizontal gradient. Ooh. So the gradient is moving horizontally. I'm a dip. And then you can add as many colors as you want. There are nobody fuss at you. You can do whatever you want with the colors. Green could be jarring there. Green is woof. Green is absolutely jarring there. Let's hex that out. So we say a little bit less green. Yeah, lighter green. Yeah. Ooh. Does that feel okay? Oh, can we have a circular gradient too? I think so. So let's go ahead and border radius. Oh, do you mean can we have so we can make this a circle, but I don't think that's what you mean. She said, can I make a cool? So yes. Okay. When you don't know, ask somebody who might know, but it's me, so I don't. And what we can do is a radial gradient. Does that sound like what we might want to look at? Yeah, let's go back to CSS on the hover state of a button after this one. So radial gradient, is this what we mean by a circular one? Because, yeah, there's a built-in property for that. We say oh, wait. I'm rubbish. Background. Radial gradient. What are my inputs here? For a radial gradient, I want, what arguments do you take? Position, ending shape, and size. Huh. So yeah, is that what we were hoping for? Ooh, it gets very spacey quite quickly. Perfect. You were absolutely right. Oh, that last pink got a little sick on. Ugh. But yes, you can have a circular one if you want. I'd say circle at 50% seems to do it. But you've already done the other two things, which are to ask somebody who looked it up. So I'm reasonably sure that link should work. If that page is not found, can you just search on the web? It should work. So which other one did we want to go back and look at? We wanted to use CSS animation to change the hover state of a button. You know what? Yeah. And you didn't make fun of me having a quiet, self-contained panic attack at the request that I do math. So I will joyously come back and look at as many of these as we want. Colors, colors, colors. Oh, that's not the doorbell. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and come down here. Do we want to go ahead and just move through this whole one again? Yeah. What did we do last time? We named the button Cool Button, and that was a mistake, wasn't it? Because it wanted the animation name to be background color. So the first, whoop, and we want to semi. Oh, I'm a doofus. It already had the name of the animation set to background color. I thought this was a separate property when I first did this. So a big part of why this might have been confusing is I went out of my way to make it confusing, didn't I? We're going to go ahead and do the keyframes now. So at keyframes, and this is saying, hey, we're doing the animation for background color. We've got this. And this, yeah, it makes a lot more sense when it's not me goofing off, isn't it? So the keyframes, we only need 100%. That's the only one. So we say, hey, we only want one sort of frame of animation. And then we want the background color to become hash 4791B0. Oh, that looks okay. When all is the at symbol used in CSS? I think let's go ahead and look that up. Oh, how about a Stack Overflow question? They're known as CSS as at rules. Here we go. Here is when we use the at sign. Oh, let's inbeam this. At rules are CSS statements that instruct CSS how to behave. They begin with the at sign. This link should actually work. Yeah. So setting something like the character set, an import, or a namespace, which we'll learn about later. It's chill. Yeah. Here is a really, really happy list of all of the at rules, which I think I find very relieving because I don't think I promise I wouldn't remember them all on my own. We are just about to have to go ahead and wrap this up for the day. Does anybody else have any more questions? I'll go ahead and I'll get um, happily. We're going to have so the stream tomorrow is just the exact same thing. There's absolutely no need to come unless you really, really determined to review the same material over again. I'll go ahead and I'll get Wednesday's guest speaker coming. We're going to have a guest speaker coming to talk to us about user experience. So, really, what that means. Oh, do you know what you're saying? Oh, I'll have to come tomorrow to review this. Are you going to come tomorrow and chuckle about me again having a tiny panel at Katak about doing maths? It's still fine. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for the day. You all please have the easiest possible morning or afternoon or the middle of the night. All right? Bye, my loves. Have a really, really easy one.